Hi, and welcome to Full Circle. I'm Emily Wilmson, and we're here today to talk about sustainability and electric vehicles. And I have with me Rosemary Russo, who's with Environmental Services. Welcome, Rosemary.
Thanks, Emily.
And I have Michelle Fincham from Utilities. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks.
And let's start off by just having you each tell a little bit about what you do, because you both work with electric vehicles at the city, but I'm not sure exactly what all you do. So we'll start with you.
My role at the city is a sustainability coordinator, and so I do a lot of work on the fleet vehicles and educating our staff. And then I also am a mentor to our ClimateWise partners that are interested in putting in charging stations or in the whole permit process that they would need to put in a charging station.
Okay, and ClimateWise, for those people who don't know, is our
voluntary program that the city has. It's a free program where the city goes out and does audits, assessments for businesses related to their water, energy use, transportation, and recycling. And so a lot of those same ClimateWise partners are the ones that have been involved in our workplace charging.
Okay, great. Good
initiative.
To know. All right, and Michelle, tell us about what you do.
Oh, I work at the Utilities Department, and I'm in the Community Engagement Division. So our entire division's work is external, working with the community, doing different kinds of programs to help them with participation and all the different kinds of things that we have. Specifically with electric vehicles, we're working internally as well as externally because there's so much that people don't know about electric vehicles right now. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to find out where our knowledge level is, both internally and externally. What do people know about it? What are their fears about it? What can we start providing information about? And then based on that, we work with our programs, do external and internal programs with the public and our own city employees, and that's where I fit in with this one.
Okay, good. Good, and a good segue to EVs seem to be becoming a big thing. What do we mean by electric hybrid vehicles? What are they? What's the difference between an electric vehicle and a hybrid vehicle? For somebody like myself who doesn't know much about these things?
Well, this campaign specifically is about electric vehicles, so the kinds of vehicles that are going to get a source of power externally somewhere besides the engine. So a hybrid car would be something that has, you also put in gas, and then it's providing its own energy as it goes along. But the electric vehicles that we're talking about means that you would have to plug it in somewhere to get a charge, to get some power from some place. And so we have charging stations around town, and you would take your vehicle and put it in this special charging place and plug it in, and that's how it gets enough energy to move. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about electric vehicles. And there's plug-in electric vehicles, and there's all these acronyms that make it confusing. We're specifically talking about the plug-in type vehicles, those ones that you get, you're plugging into the grid and you're getting energy from that source. So they are a big deal, and we have been partnering with Drive Electric Northern Colorado, who has identified Northern Colorado as a place to pilot what it looks like to really push electric vehicles, have people buying them as their own personal vehicles, having them as fleets for businesses that have fleet vehicles. And it's a huge partnership that's going on 2 places in the nation. We're one of those places in the nation. So it's very exciting and front edge for us to be a part of that.
Okay, yeah, one of the reasons they picked Fort Collins was Fort Collins has reliable energy, and we're doing all these pilots with Fort Zed, so the electric vehicle fit in well with those prior initiatives. So now we're known as the Vehicle Electrification City of America.
Okay, and that designation is by?
That is by our reliability of our grid, our pilot from the Fort Zed initiative, our willingness to partner.
Is that the Electrification Coalition?
With the Electrification Coalition,
okay.
CSU, the City of Fort Collins, and the City of Loveland.
Okay, great.
So by having these partners and then these new business partners as well, we set ourselves above the majority of other cities in America.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're really a testing ground, right? And so we're working with a lot of the auto dealerships in town, and just finding out what it looks like, what those tax incentive looks like from the federal level on down. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of information that we still don't know, and there's just a lot of questions, and so we're basically testing it for the rest of the nation. And what Drive Electric Northern Colorado is really looking for is how does it work, and how can you replicate this, and what does it look like when the rest of the nation is ready to start adopting electric vehicles.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just wanted to add, so the other, two aspects of it was that we have the clean energy cluster here, and then we have some local companies like Spire that are really doing work on the grid and how electric vehicles could be used for storage and how they impact the whole microgrids.
Okay. No, that's a good clarification. So why would the city as an organization be involved in promoting electric vehicles? Why is it that we should care about that topic, and why don't we just leave it to private business or, the Colorado Clean Energy Cluster? What's our role?
So the city's role is that, part of our mission is we always want to lead by example. And so last year, the city as a business or as an organization, our carbon reductions were 11.5% below our baseline. And so our carbon emissions really reflect the kind of fuel we use, our electricity use. And so we want to set an example. So, as a municipal organization, we are among the top 10% in the country. And so that's one reason the city is involved. The other is we want to be responsible fiscal agents to the taxpayers. And so this is one way we could do it. We want to promote, like Michelle mentioned, our car manufacturers and some of these local businesses that are piloting different aspects of the EV infrastructure.
Recently, we had the Climate Action Plan was also passed by council earlier this year, I believe it was. Yes, it was this year.
In March.
Yeah, and there's some of the ways that we're going to get towards those very large goals is through electric vehicles as well. And so that was also identified as one of those segments of how are we going to reduce emissions in our community, and electric vehicles are part of the solution there.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think it was March 3rd, City Council approved that Climate Action Plan framework, and that's terminology a lot of people are going to hear, but it's good to understand this is something that directly contributes to that effort.
It's
correct?
one of the top, I think we had 8 strategies, and it's one of the strategies that we're looking at in the broader perspective of alternative transportation and green transportation.
Okay, so what you mentioned earlier, Drive Electric Northern Colorado. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Rosemary? What's that organization?
So Drive Electric Northern Colorado is a nonprofit, and we the first project that we had with them was back in February of 2013. We launched the opening of the first fast charging station at the Museum of Discovery. And so Michelle mentioned charging stations. So there's 3 levels of charging stations. Level 1 is your simple charging station that you would have at your house. It's the outlet you would put you could theoretically plug your car into your dryer. There's the level 2, and that takes someone about 8 hours to charge their car. Or there's the level 2, those are the kinds we have around the city, and the ones we put in at the Museum of Discovery was the first fast charging station in northern Colorado. You could charge your car in 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because that's a DC, so that's a,
So the DC meaning?
So alternating current or direct current.
Okay.
And so with the other kinds, level 1 or level 2, you have to have a converter. So you're having one kind of electricity come in, you convert it so the car can use it.
Okay.
And so depending on the level is how fast. So they all charge, but a lot of people don't think, I think the misconception is, I'll have to find a charging station, and where are the charging stations? So one thing that a lot of people don't know is anywhere within Fort Collins, you're within 6 miles of a charging station. So how we're trying to get that information out is Streets now has a consistent sign for all the charging stations, and they'll also be putting up instructions for people of how to use the charging stations.
Okay.
So the Drive Electric Northern Colorado is part of the Electrification Coalition. So it's the nonprofit arm for that. So there's a much larger nationwide movement around this electric vehicle that's going on, and it's supported by the Department of Energy on the federal level.
Okay.
And so there's some kind of big picture things that are going on, and Drive Electric Northern Colorado is kind of our local chapter, if you will, nonprofit that is supporting a lot of the initiatives that are going on. So we're really plugging into what they are doing. We're not leading it. We're a partner with them, and they are the ones who do drive and ride events, for example, and they're the ones who really have motivated the enthusiasts that they call them in town.
Yep.
All those people who already own electric vehicles, and they want to share with their knowledge and why they chose to buy one and what they love about their car. And so they've really motivated this base of people here in town in both Loveland and Fort Collins and all over this area. And so, you know, they're doing their job here, and we're plugging into what they are doing, and it's working really well as a nice partnership.
Okay, that's great.
And the other thing about the partnership too is that we can write grants together. So DNC and the city and CSU have written some grant applications, and we've received money for the charging stations, which is, you know, it's just a great partnership because we have good experience with DOE grants in the past.
Good to know. And speaking of the cities, you mentioned the city's a partner, and we're also trying to lead by example. We have a fleet of electric vehicles, correct? And
Right. So the city has right now 67 electric vehicles. 18 are trucksters, so they're like the smaller maintenance vehicles you'll see that utility has. We have 18 hybrids and then 8 purely EV.
Okay. All right, and those are like just the Priuses you would see, or
Nissan Leaf. We have a Volt.
what? Okay.
We have a couple of Leafs and a couple of, I think at least two Leafs and a couple of Volts in our fleet at utilities, and there's different fleets around, but
And a Mitsubishi.
Okay.
2 Mitsubishis, I believe.
Thank you,
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay.
So yeah, we have fleet vehicles available for city employees when they need to go out and go someplace and use a city vehicle. We have those available. Different departments have them, and we're working on replacements of cars. Operation Services, I know, is looking at, well, which car should we be replacing it with, and that's part of the thought process.
So
Okay.
some of the departments that drive a lot, like the parking meter, they are driving an electric vehicle now. Some of the people in natural areas that have to drive up to Soapstone, they are buying a Nissan Leaf this summer.
Okay, so it's starting to kind of fan out across the city organization. And it's another project that you two are working on it's called the Workplace Challenge, not to be confused with the WorkWise Challenge, but for the Lose a Watt campaign, but Workplace Challenge. Talk a little bit about that and how the city is involved in that.
Sure, and the Workplace Charging Challenge is quite internal, and this is the internal part of this whole work. And this is a nationwide movement as well. We're partnering along with I believe it's somewhere in the order of 15 to 17 other businesses here in northern Colorado are part of this Workplace Charging Challenge. So this is not our name for it. But what the ultimate goal of that is to have a charging station for personal vehicles of employees. So if you choose to buy an electric vehicle, plug an electric vehicle, when you come to work and you're in your office in your office and not using your car, you can charge your car during the day. Okay. So the ultimate goal of this is to get to a place where we're providing this for the employees of the city of Fort Collins, and for all the other businesses that are a part of this, they're trying to provide that for their employees as well. And this is based on a lot of research that has happened nationwide that says, you know, while those cars are sitting there all day while people are at work, that's the opportune time for a lot of charging to happen. And if they're going to be sitting there for 8 hours, you can do the level 1, which is a little less complicated than, say, the level 3 charging. If you're on a road trip and you're wanting to move and go faster and not sit around for a long period of time, that's when those level 3s would come in a lot more handy. So the Workplace Charging Challenge is really assessing where we are, and we've noticed not only if we put in a charging station tomorrow for the city employees, a lot of people still wouldn't understand or know what electric vehicles are. So it's a campaign, an awareness and education campaign first. What are they? The same questions you were asking. Why do we care about it? Why are we involved? What are your opportunities here? And then when we have this is a true benefit to us that as you buy and choose to buy an electric vehicle, you can charge it at work. And as we look at the workforce of tomorrow, those kinds of things are really important.
Okay.
Yeah, HP, when they put in their charging stations, so HP is one of the companies that Michelle mentioned. 2 people owned an EV, and after the charging stations were put in, they went up to 20 people within like 6 months. And so the research shows that if you have a charging infrastructure at your place of employment, then you're more likely to purchase an electric vehicle.
Okay, that's good to know. So we were one of how many companies? 16? Or
I'm
something
looking
like
at the
that?
list right here, and it looks like there's 17. I'm happy to read them off, but there's the Colorado BMW Center, the New Belgiums and the Odells, the Dellenbach. So a lot of these places that sell cars, as well as some of the front-running organizations in town, Brinkman Partners, Woodward, CSU, Brindle Group, City of Fort Collins. So a lot of people are coming to the table. In February, we had a very big press release with representatives from all these different companies, as well as from the Department of Energy and people coming in from other states, to launch this whole workplace charging challenge. So all of us simultaneously are trying to figure out the same thing. How do you provide this for your employees? And you need to write policy sometimes. How do you make it fair and equitable for everybody? You need the awareness and education piece. So there's a lot of pieces that go into place in order to get to that eventual, this is how we get a charging station, this is what it looks like for you or you to use it, and how do we replicate that and make it bigger?
So that's one of the areas I'm working on, is the policy and talking to other businesses, because the businesses all have different models. And so HP allows their employees to charge for 4 hours for free. New Belgium allows their employees to charge, but they also allow the public to charge. So some of these people that are in the Workplace Challenge are putting in stations to encourage customers.
Okay.
In other states, you see a lot of hotels doing it now, or restaurants.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so if I'm curious about one of these vehicles and I've never driven one before, where can I go to test drive an electric vehicle? I mean, in addition to going to a dealer, but, you know, aren't there events that are sometimes happening around town?
So Drive Electric Northern Colorado does about 2 or 3 events every month, and so on their website they'll have the site location. So they do them at places like Whole Foods or Jack's.
Okay.
They've done quite a few with the City of Fort Collins, and so the best thing is just to go onto their it's driveelectricnoco.org.
Okay.
And they'll have all their
They have an events tab, and I do know that this last quarter, with it being Earth Day and there's springtime, and a lot of driving decisions are being made, purchase vehicles are being made at this time of year, I suppose. They really beefed up their events, and they had somewhere in the order of 10 or 12 in May, and I think June too, they have a whole bunch, but then they're focusing on different things in different months. So I know right now in June, if you want to test an electric vehicle, if you want to drive one, they've got everything worked out. The waiver that you have to sign, that just in case something happens, they talk to you. They always have those EV enthusiasts go in the car with you, so as you're driving, you can ask somebody who owns that vehicle the questions that you want to. They have the routes mapped out. It's a really well-oiled machine and a fun event to go to. While you're waiting to do it, there's all kinds of activities and things to do. Many of the car dealerships in town will host them, and like Rosemary said, some of the businesses in town as well will host them. Some are private, some aren't, so go on to, that's where we refer people, because they're the ones who are creating those events. So go on to Drive Electric, go into the events section, and they're all listed there, and they're very good about keeping that up to date.
Okay, good to know.
The nice thing about the Drive Electric events too is you're not at a dealership, and so you can test a lot of different vehicles. So at most of the events they'll have a Tesla, and they'll have a BMW, and they'll have a Nissan Leaf, and so it's not like going to one dealership and trying one vehicle. You have a chance to talk to owners and test 4 or 5 different vehicles.
They also have all the rebate information available, and they also have little calculators. They have it online at their website too, that help you understand, if you're going to buy it, how much more expensive is it going to be, where do the tax rebates come in, and actually what does that really make the ultimate price, and is it actually cheaper for you, what's the return on investment. So all of that financial stuff too, they're very good about providing that information, and there's resources to go onto these calculators to figure out, can you afford it? When I'm thinking about my next car, is this the car that I want to have? Can I plan for that?
And a lot of the rebate information too, we've put out at all our public libraries in town.
Okay.
And so I think there's a misconception when people think about electric vehicles. They think about the Tesla.
Right.
But, you know, with the Chevy Volt or the Nissan Leaf,
Or the Mitsubishi.
between a federal rebate and the state rebate, one is like $7,000 and one is $6,000. So all of a sudden you have a $32,000 car going down to a much more reasonable price.
Okay, great. Well, that's actually a nice way to wrap up our conversation because we're running out of time. So, other than wanting to drive a Tesla,
Me
They are
too.
fun,
haven't
actually.
what are any last thoughts about electric vehicles and what we've talked about today? Michelle, you want to?
I think this is just an exciting opportunity. I think by living in northern Colorado, by living in Fort Collins, these are opportunities that you're not going to get in other places. And so take advantage of the fact that we have these opportunities, that you can go to these ride and drive events, drive a couple of different cars. It's fun. Just do it. And maybe you're going to buy a vehicle in 5, 10, doesn't matter, but just try it and see it. And you're already going to be the talk of the party when you go visit your relatives in a different state.
Okay, Rosemarie, any thoughts from you?
Well, I just want to say, you know, DENC is looking for neighborhood ride and drive. So if there's a HOA or neighborhood that's interested, they'll supply the cars and go to your neighborhood. And so it's something that people can arrange on their own as well as these organized events. Also, I just wanted to add that, you know, there are these apps. If people are wondering where these charging stations are, there's PlugShare and Charge Ahead. And so you can look and see. The city's put in 9 charging stations for the public, and then we have additional 9 for our fleets. So there are a lot more charging stations than people realize.
Okay, good to know. Well, thank you both for coming.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you,
Thank you.
Rosemarie. And we'll see you next time on Full Circle.